Hello, Anne, and welcome.
Hello, Isabelle. Lovely to be here. Really looking forward to talking.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. I loved Banking on It, and I found it to be a really refreshing read on what it means to be a CEO and founder and all of the highs and lows that entails. But not only that, to hear how you've had such a huge impact on the banking industry. So the book is subtitled How I Disrupted an Industry, and I'm super excited to talk about that. But first of all, I know you're a book lover, and I can see that you've got your own book on the shelves behind you. How does that feel?
Absolutely fantastic. Really, really proud to have a book out there. And it's great to be able to talk about it because, writing a book means all these things have been going around in your head, things you feel about your business or how you want to go about sort of changing things. It's crystallized in a book, and having it behind you on a shelf is fantastic.
Yeah, I can imagine. And a little bit surreal at the same time. So both you and Starling seem to be gaining more and more accolades as the days go by. I think you just really recently got awarded the title of FinTech of the Year. And, kind of before creating Starling, you'd already achieved a great deal in your career in traditional banks. Could you tell us just a few of the things that you learned in your 30-year experience of working at big banks like RBS and AIB that prompted you to start out with something new and to disrupt the banking industry?
And probably it's because I knew too much that I decided that I should quit and start a new bank. I had a long career in banking. I started as a computer scientist in Lloyds Bank in the early 80s, and I worked all around the world, from Lloyds Bank to Standard Chartered Bank to UBS in Zurich, to ABN AMRO in Amsterdam, and RBS to Allied Irish banks. And I came to the conclusion that banking wasn't changing. It was looking backwards rather than looking forwards. And technology had changed the way people were shopping, people were buying music, and the banking industry hadn't embraced that. And I started dreaming about starting a new bank, one that had all the new technology, a new way of embracing customers. And it was a dream. And one day I quit my job to turn the dream into reality.
Just a small dream then, starting a new bank.
Yeah.
And I love how in the book you refer to it as Project New Bank. Obviously, there's a lot of fear that's involved when starting a new project, and obviously one as big as that. How did you overcome that fear and actually start what has become Starling?
Well, I started every day, getting up in the morning and thinking, well, somebody should start a new bank. Somebody should do something different. I never thought it would be me. I thought that why would it be me that started that bank? Would it be somebody else? And one day I came to the conclusion that what I was fearing was that I'd look silly. I'd be a fool. People would think that is a silly idea to do something audacious. But I came to the conclusion that if I start something really, really audacious that's never been done before, if I fail, it wouldn't be failure at all. And that would have spurred me on. And in January 2014, I quit my job to start a new bank.
And you did it, and we're now here. And I'm interested just to go back to obviously just that time pre starting new bank. And you talked a lot about how you had success when you start to think like a startup, and obviously there were confinements on that and restrictions because you were working for a big business. So for anyone who's listening who does work within a big business, can you explain what it means to think like a startup and how, even if there are restrictions on you, how you might be able to implement that in your day-to-day?
I think the problem is that when we're in a big corporate, we have lots of people pointing out the problems, lots of people pointing out the detail, and somehow we just know too much. So what we tried to do is solve all the problems at once. We tried to make a list of all the things that need to be done, do a long, long plan, and come up with something that's just too long, too complicated, and you never reach the end of it. Thinking like a startup is figuring out what you can do this week. What can you do this week? And you can have lots of naysayers say, no, that can't be done. 6 months down the line, you're going to have this problem. A year later, the customers are not going to like this. All those things stop you from doing the first step. And in a corporate, in every big organization, you have to train the organization to be agile, to do things in a different way. and start to have your confidence back. Organizations have lost their confidence to do difficult things, and it's getting the confidence back in the organization, taking step by step, and being terribly convincing. Big organizations can change as well. And it's all about each individual standing up and saying, we can do that.
Absolutely. And why do you think big business have lost confidence?
I think the organization has structured things too much, taken the individual motivation out of the processes and the will to do something, and replaced them with process and procedures. Now, every time we make a mistake, we put in place a process or a procedure or a risk management thing to actually control making that mistake again. And that's good. You need to do that. But the problem is that these processes have swamped creativity and swamped people from taking that first step or actually pushing to the next step of development and innovation. It's in all of us to be creative, to build businesses within our businesses. You can do that as well. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to do it. And I hope some of that comes through in the book.
Absolutely. So, of course, you explain your story of starting a new business and growing it up, and that will never be smooth sailing. And you do talk very openly about kind of the heartbreaks and the pitfalls that you experienced during setting up Starling, as well as the highs. Why was it important for you to share that story now?
Well, Starling is soon to be profitable. We've now got nearly 2 million customers. 4 billion of deposits, 1.5 billion of lending. So, yeah, we're coming to the start of a new phase of our development as a profitable business. And I really, really get so much inspiration from reading books. I love reading, sort of other people's stories of their businesses and the tough times. And it supported me through the journey. I'd read Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and there'd be chapters in there I'd read time and time again when I needed the motivation to go to the next stage. And I wanted to do my bit in putting down my stories of my journey to help others on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we say, it's now on the bookshelf behind you with many other classics. Are there any particular entrepreneurs' books that you come back to time and time again?
Yeah, I think I just mentioned but I think that I read and read an awful lot of sort of the business biographies because I think those are the things that inspire me. Recently, I read Shoe Dog.
Yes,
which is great. Which is a really, really great story. And yeah, I'm constantly reading, and I love the chance of learning from other people's ideas.
Absolutely, and that's something we feel very passionately about, and that's why the book club exists. So, obviously, as we said, the book is subtitled "How I Disrupted an Industry." And that idea of disruption is one, it plays into the idea of thinking like a startup. If you were to now in 2020 refocus where you were looking to disrupt, what industry would you now be focusing on?
I think medtech is and biotech is very, very interesting. But that's not the industry that I work in. That's, I spent my career in financial services technology and that sort of business, data businesses. I'm very, very interested in machine learning and artificial intelligence. I think there's huge opportunities for the world in biotech and medtech. I am really, really, I'm looking forward to a world where we'll eventually get to grips with robotics. I think we're at the start of a wonderful period when there's lots of things going on out there that we can benefit from as human beings.
Absolutely. And obviously talking about 2020 and the future ahead of us, it has been, an incredibly unusual year. And you've written a really beautiful kind of epilogue to the book about what life's been like at Starling since the pandemic started. And I wondered if you could just share a few of the kind of key moments for you over the last 6 months of running a bank in a global pandemic.
Yeah, it was. We never expected this, did we? We never expected for society to change so dramatically. But Starling was built for the cloud. Starling was built to operate in this very new, innovative way, and therefore we transitioned to working remotely very easily, and we were very, very quick to listen to what customers were saying and launch new products. We launched a connected card for people that are self-isolating, and we're one of the only 2 products recommended by NHS volunteers. We launched a product to scan checks, so people didn't have to go and post checks. So we really started listening, and we also helped small businesses with bounce back loans. The government announced their lending scheme, and we very, very quickly engaged in that. And we've now done a 1.1 billion of bounce back loans, helping small businesses. So we've been very busy, and not a single person has been furloughed. And we working very, very carefully together, supporting people at home. We have a program called Never Home Alone. Mm-hmm. And every day we engage with people in different ways, whether it's learning to listen, learning to share, learning to manage your own mental health. So we have lots of speakers and lots of engagement, so people are never home alone.
And I love that. What an amazing name for an initiative. And obviously loneliness is something that is a real problem for people right now. On kind of your point about no one in your company being furloughed, you do mention that the press kind of jumped on this idea that you were going to furlough some of your staff, and I just wondered what you would like to say to anyone kind of who reads the mainstream press. As a business owner on the receiving end of some of those things, what would you like people to remember when they're reading these headlines?
I think lots of headlines are good and well researched. But lots of headlines could be just wrong. Mm-hmm. But I believe in journalism. I believe that journalism has a great part to play in ensuring that people in positions are held to account. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you have to be thick-skinned as an entrepreneur, because you can overreact. You can have a headline which is perhaps unfair. But you can't have the good press without the bad press as well. And, that's how the world works. So being an entrepreneur and having successful stories, having the stories that say that you're doing really well, one day you're going to have the negative press as well. And that's that comes with being successful.
So you just gotta roll with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we are almost at the end of our time talking together. I would love to talk to you about your book recommendations for hours and hours, so we'll have to arrange that separately. But if you could summarize in 15 seconds what it is that you want anyone who's picking up Bank It On It to take it away with them, what would that be?
Yeah, I think that the Observer called it a banking blockbuster. And some people have talked about it as being part memoir, part business book, and part thriller. And that really encapsulates it all, really. What you have is starting a business, being an entrepreneur, is a roller coaster, and you have to enjoy it. And everybody has the opportunity to do something interesting in their career, whether as a corporate or whether as an entrepreneur. Have a go. You may change the world.